Today is NFL schedule release day here for the 2026 NFL season. And right now, as I currently stand here today, we have 10 Steelers games that have already been leaked. And on today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports presented by Prize Picks, I'm going to be reacting to all 10 of those games that have already been leaked. Now, keep in mind that almost all of these leaks that we'll be discussing today have not been made officially official by the NFL just yet, but we will be doing a video later today breaking down the official schedule for the Pittsburgh Steelers here in 2026, breaking down all 17 games, breaking down when the Steelers have their bye week, when the divisional games are being placed, all that different stuff. So even though we're going to be talking about some of the leaked games here today, which include a number of standalone and primetime games for the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure you guys are subscribed for our full schedule reaction that is coming up later today. But let's start here with the slate of leaks that we have gotten here over the last 24 hours or so, starting with the season opener in Week 1, which is rumored to be at home versus the Atlanta Falcons. Now, of course, this team opened their season versus the Falcons just 2 seasons ago in Atlanta, and they also opened the season at then Heinz Field against the Falcons way back when Rashawn Mendenhall had a walk-off touchdown in that game. So the Steelers have had some success in season openers against the Dirty Birds. Now, personally, I was kind of hoping that we were going to get Tua and the Falcons later in the season when Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh obviously is a lot colder, and we know that Tua is not particularly good at playing in those cold weather games. Just look at last year's game when we completely destroyed him and the Miami Dolphins offense at home in a cold weather game at Acrisure Stadium. But now it's going to be in a September game here early on in the season, so Tua could be at the height of his powers, so to speak, against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So it should be a pretty decent early test here for the Steelers defense at home. And also another storyline to keep an eye out for when it comes to this particular matchup is that Aaron Rodgers' former interim head coach with the New York Jets, Jeff Ulbrich, is the defensive coordinator there in Atlanta. Did a pretty decent job with that Dirty Bird defense last year. So good, in fact, that Kevin Stefanski, their new head coach, kept him on as their defensive coordinator. Obviously, Rodgers and Ulbrich very familiar with each other, had to go up against each other in practice there in East Rutherford for multiple years there. So that would definitely be an interesting matchup there if, of course, Aaron Rodgers is back as this team's starting quarterback, as it's expected to be. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Do you want to attend the season opener this year if it's going to be Steelers versus Falcons? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our presenting sponsor today here at Prize Picks. And while I tell you about Prize Picks today, give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. But before we get into the rest of the schedule leaks for the Pittsburgh Steelers that have been out there already, let's have a word from our sponsor today here at Prize Picks, which is America's #1 sports picks app. Playoff basketball is still here, but it won't be around forever, guys, and there's no better place to cash in during the playoff action than with our friends at Prize Picks. The app is super easy to use. You just pick more than or less than on a few player stat projections and then lock in your lineup. And if basketball isn't your thing, they have a ton of other sports to choose from as well, with a number of different stat projections to choose from to truly customize your daily lineups. You can even look at next year's football season with future projections on things like receiving touchdowns for receivers like Puka Nacua or DK Metcalf, for example, or passing yards for quarterbacks like Dak Prescott or Caleb Williams. This particular projection, you can put in 100, or you can win $120 from our friends at Prize Picks with just a $20 entry fee. You have to get all 3 correct to get the money, though, with what they call a power play. They also have flex play options, so you can kind of customize your lineups to your personal needs and wants. And one thing that I love about the Prize Picks app, guys, is the new social feeds feature where you can share Prize Picks lineups with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app at Sperry to see all of my lineups. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with our friends at Prize Picks. Click the link in the comments and description to download the app, and a big thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring Steelers Talk. Another leak here in Week 2 that we have gotten for the Pittsburgh Steelers is that they are rumored to be heading to Foxborough for their first away game of the season, going to the New England Patriots and playing against last year's AFC champions in Drake May. They're in Foxborough for the second straight season. Of course, the Steelers were able to win that game last year in Week 3 in Foxborough. But obviously, I don't know if the Steelers are going to be able to bank on getting 5 turnovers against the Patriots this time around. It's also worth noting that the Patriots are probably going to be trading for A.J. Brown at some point this offseason, so that's definitely going to be an early litmus test for this year's Steelers squad. But then we get to Week 3 here, and good news, we get the Bengals in September. Obviously, Zach Taylor's Cincinnati Bengals have not traditionally done well in the first month of the season during Zach Taylor's tenure there, and that included last year as well. And I think that getting these guys early on in the season is a good thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially at home. I think there's a pretty decent chance that the Steelers can come away with that Week 3 matchup with the dub. Then another home game here has been leaked for the Steelers in Week 5, which is going to be the Indianapolis Colts at Acrisure Stadium. Of course, the Steelers hosted the Colts last year and ended up beating them pretty handily, I might add, in one of the better games for the defense in particular on the season. But then really a big ticket item for this upcoming season, this is the one game that has actually been confirmed by the National Football League on today's list, which is the Week 7 matchup in Paris versus the New Orleans Saints, a matchup between black and gold versus black and gold here. Now, the game will be played at the Stade de France in Paris, so that should be pretty darn cool to see the Steelers travel internationally once again. Obviously, they went to Ireland last year, and that was a ginormous success. Now, this is actually not considered a home game for the Steelers. It is a home game for the Saints, so the opportunity to play in the first ever game in Paris a year after playing the first ever NFL game in Ireland, I think is an awesome opportunity here for the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though it kind of sucks that we as Steelers fans don't have the opportunity to go to Bourbon Street as we were expecting heading into the year. But before we get into the rest of the schedule here, guys, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already, if you are excited to play overseas again. I know I am. I know some Steelers fans are disappointed that they can't travel to New Orleans, and we only get so many opportunities to do that because they're in the NFC. We are in, obviously, the AFC, so we don't get many chances to go to Bourbon Street in New Orleans, and that's been taken away from us now. But, hey, Paris is a pretty cool destination as well, so make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you're excited to see the Steelers play overseas yet again. But the Steelers catch a little bit of a tough break here after the Paris game, as they are not getting a bye after their Week 7 matchup in Paris versus the Saints, and they then have to travel home to take on the Cleveland Browns in Week 8 at Acrisure Stadium. And that's just tough because, instead of getting that bye to really reset your sleep clock and all that different stuff, you have to travel home and prepare for what's going to be a really physical interdivision matchup versus one of your biggest rivals. And even though you're at home, so, I would say that the Steelers are probably the better team compared to the Cleveland Browns, and they should probably be favored in that game. I do think it increases the chances of an upset there with your home matchup versus the Browns after coming back from Paris. So that is maybe an instance there where the Steelers got a little bit screwed by the schedule. But then you get to Week 10 where you play another divisional matchup here versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This time it'll be on the road in the jungle in Cincinnati. That'll be played reportedly on Sunday Night Football. And this is really the beginning of a stretch here in the second half of the Steelers' 2026 schedule, apparently, where they're going to be slated to get a ton of primetime games. And, of course, Sunday Night Football kind of kicks that off here in Week 10 versus the Cincinnati Bengals. But then you get to Black Friday here in Week 12, where the Steelers are expected to play on Black Friday this year versus the Denver Broncos. That is a standalone game. There's only one game played, I believe, on Black Friday this year. So the Steelers would be playing that at Acrisure Stadium at home versus one of the best teams in the AFC. And, these next 3 weeks, Week 12 through 14, is really going to be a litmus test for how the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be in terms of their competitiveness in a potential AFC playoffs this year. Another kind of note here is that this would be the first time the Pittsburgh Steelers play a game on a Friday since the 1940s when the logo looked like this. So it's been a very long time since the Steelers have played on a Friday, but certainly cool that the Steelers could get that opportunity in a really high-flying matchup versus one of the best teams in the AFC. But then in Week 13, the week after, you're once again on prime time for another, former playoff matchup here, a rematch between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Houston Texans at Acrisure Stadium. And this is a really awesome opportunity, in my opinion, guys, because I've been asked a lot if the Pittsburgh Steelers had the offensive weaponry and the coaching that they now have on this team last year during that playoff game versus Houston, how does it affect the outcome? And I actually think the Steelers probably would have won that game. I think that the offense, with the turnover opportunities that the defense created, probably scores more points in the first half, and that puts the Texans behind the 8 ball, and the Steelers, I think, end up winning that football game if you have Jeremy Bernard or Michael Pittman Jr. and Jonnu Smith is off the field and Darnell Washington is healthy and all these things that we now have here in Pittsburgh. So I think that this game will be a great litmus test and a great comparison point for this year's Steelers team in comparison to what they were last year, right? Because it's the same team with the same quarterback, the same great defense, in the same building, in a similar type of weather environment. It's going to be in December is when this game is going to be played at night, so it's going to be a cold weather game. So I think that will be a great kind of litmus test for this Steelers team, and kind of comparing this year's team versus what it was last year. It's also interesting to note that Mike Tomlin will be in attendance for that game. Football Night in America is going to be traveling to the venue that that week's game is being played in every single week. So Mike Tomlin will actually be in attendance for when the Steelers take on the Houston Texans in Week 13. But then you get another primetime game here, so that's 3 in a row here, where you will travel to Jacksonville reportedly to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 14 on Monday Night Football. And of course, that means that the Steelers, towards the end of their season, is going to get this kind of mini gauntlet there where they're going to be playing 3 straight primetime games versus playoff teams, and really a stretch that I think is going to determine just how good this Pittsburgh Steelers team is this year and just how competitive they can be in the AFC playoffs. If they can win at least 2 of those 3 games, I think that they have a pretty decent chance of winning a playoff game this year. If they lose all 3, obviously we're looking at a Steelers team that's probably going to be limited once again once we get into January. Now, the nice thing about it is that you do have a nice little break in between those games. You play on Friday versus Denver, then you get a long break before Sunday Night Football against Houston, then you get another longer week as you prepare for Monday Night Football. Now, to kind of wrap things up here, we do have a little bit of a rumor here. This is just a rumor, but there's lots of different rumors floating around out there, but the Steelers could be playing on Christmas this year in Week 16 versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And of course, the Steelers played on Christmas a couple of years ago against the Kansas City Chiefs, and that obviously didn't work out too well for Pittsburgh. So this could be a chance at Christmas redemption if that ends up being the case. But there's also rumors that they could be playing Tampa in Week 6. So, there's definitely a lot of things floating around out there. So I won't include that game on the leaked games thus far. So these are the 10 leaked games that we have. Week 1 versus the Atlanta Falcons. Week 2 on the road in Foxborough versus the reigning AFC champs. Then you go back home to play the Cincinnati Bengals. Then you have another home game versus the Colts in Week 5. You travel to Paris in Week 7 to take on the Saints. Then you come back immediately and have to play a divisional game at home versus the Browns. Then you get a Sunday Night Football matchup on the road in the jungle. Then you get a Black Friday game at home versus Denver. You get another home game in primetime against the Houston Texans, and a really big one that I have circled in red ink on my calendar right now. And then you travel to Jacksonville in Week 14 in a big-time Monday Night Football matchup. Now, of course, the rest of the schedule will be released as the day goes on here. And if you're going to be watching both of our videos here on Steelers Talk here today throughout the course of NFL schedule release day, make sure you type those real ones down there in the comment section in all caps so that we know who those guys are and we can give some love to you down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for our first schedule release video of the day right here on Steelers Talk. Again, guys, if we get an Aaron Rodgers update today, we'll probably cover that at some point, but of course we'll for sure get you one more video by the end of today breaking down the entire Pittsburgh Steelers 2026 schedule. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you guys click that subscribe button, turn on those notifications so you know when we put that video out. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.